So this is going to be a bit of a rant, but probably not in the way you're expecting. Kia ora, I'm Kimmy, and these are the 3 things I learned during the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix. Did I say 3 things because I meant 1, because the 3 points I have here all feed into the same conclusion. 1, I'm fed up with people complaining about Monaco, which leads into 2, a vast majority of fans see Formula 1 as entirely an individual driver's sport and not what it actually is, which is a team sport. And 3, there is nothing the FIA or race control can do to create rules specific for Monaco that will make it a worthwhile Sunday for the vast majority of fans, short of doing something drastic and completely unrecognisable. Does that mean my conclusion is that it's time for Monaco to go? No, it's actually the exact opposite. Now, I've seen people call what happened this weekend an embarrassment. I've seen people call it a farce. I've seen people call it one of the worst races they've ever watched. And to those people, I acknowledge your personal feelings, but please understand I am metaphorically pulling out my tiny violin and handing you a cookie. Monaco has been, for many, many years, a Saturday circuit. It's a track that exists because of its history for sure, but it's also damn difficult. It's a challenge. It's a true test of both the cars and the driver's ability to find the absolute limit of what they're prepared to risk. People keep pumping out complaints about the size of the cars being the problem with Monaco, that if only they were smaller, it would be like the good old days. But that's not going to happen, because one of the reasons those cars are so big and heavy is thanks to safety, although I'll admit that getting rid of the bloody hybrid engines would also be a big help. And B, Monaco hasn't produced consistently good dry weather wheel-to-wheel racing for decades at this point. The problem with Monaco is that it's such a stark outlier in the F1 calendar that many fans don't understand how to watch it. And for some people, those who are only interested in watching overtakes and cars going at full throttle down the DRS straights, that might mean that maybe their full session watching just kind of stops when quali ends on Saturday. And that's okay. You're not a bad fan because you don't watch the entire weekend. You're not a bad fan because you don't watch the race. If it's not for you, that's cool. And yes, I realise the irony, considering I'm a supporter of losing Imola from the calendar, but that argument's a whole different kettle of fish that's coming from the angle of let's make it better so it can come back with a vengeance. Let's compare this to any other non-racing sport, football for instance. Now, I don't know sweet FA about football, let's be real, but as with any other team sport, there's always a few matches in any team season where they're playing opposite a side who's either significantly better than them or significantly worse. Either way, it's an almost guaranteed walkover, even if the superior team isn't bringing a full-strength squad, and the chances of there being a thriller are pretty much slim to none. But they're still part of the championship, or perhaps they're a friendly that's important for team development. They're still part of the economy of the sport, they're still part of the culture of the sport, and they're still important to the sport, even if it's not particularly exciting to see your faves inevitably defeated 5-0. But you can still watch these matches through a different lens. Perhaps you're keeping an eye on how certain players work together as a team, or there's been a few position changes and you're paying attention to how that's affected the dynamic. Or you just really like watching sweaty people run around kicking a ball, throwing themselves at the ground dramatically and screaming anthems at the top of your lungs. This is the difference between watching Monaco and expecting there to be a magic bullet that fixes its inherent issues with wheel-to-wheel racing, and watching it while spending as much time with your eyes on the timing chart as on the actual cars on track. And I'm not saying that there's a superior way to watch motor racing. At the end of the day, your own watching style is the most important thing for you individually. And I, personally, absolutely prefer a race where genuine non-DRS assisted passes are able to be made. However, I also appreciate Monaco specifically because of things of like what happened this weekend. Going in, there was a lot of chatter about some teams getting all of their stops out of the way in the first couple of laps. There was talk of teams going as long as possible and hanging it out for a red flag, kind of like what Max Verstappen did. And what I considered the most obvious thing to happen, because this is what is an absolute stalwart of racing strategy around Monaco, talk about teams working together to back up the pack. And even if the teams themselves who employed this strategy have gone on record saying they don't like it and it's not how they want to go racing, I challenge them to consider that there are still fans out there who understand that Monaco is a circuit where a driver can make all the difference in qualifying, but it's the team who makes all the difference come Grand Prix Sunday. And you know what else makes a difference? Subscribing to my channel and liking this video. It makes a difference to whether or not YouTube shows it to you when I post new stuff. So you should totally do that if you want to see me on your homepage. Sure. So maybe it's okay to have one track that's so much of an outlier, it becomes more about how far teams and drivers are willing to push the rulebook to gain an advantage or maintain a position, and for those fans who are more strategically minded, that part of the excitement is watching those things play out. I mean, heck, one of the most thrilling, nail-biting wins in recent memory involved a car with a non-functioning MGUK holding on for 50 laps to take the checkered flag. Any other circuit and Daniel Ricciardo would have had to retire that car, but in Monaco, he was on the top step of the podium. Could you imagine the heartbreak? Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz might not have liked what they did to score that double points finish, but watching the moment Alex let Carlos pass to build the gap to protect the next pit stop had me shouting at the screen about what a good call it was. And they claim it was because they were forced into the positions by the Racing Bulls, but with the Williams starting side by side on the grid, I certainly don't begrudge them doing what they needed to do to secure their positions, and I expect it probably would have happened that way whether or not the RBs were successful in pulling it off themselves. Chances are, honestly, something similar would have played out even without the mandatory 2 tyre changes. And I get that not everyone considers F1 a high-speed game of chess and isn't interested in doing maths for an hour and 45 minutes to work out relative position of cars on track and how many pit stops they've done, but there are people out there who do enjoy these things and thus still enjoy Monaco, even if it's a procession like it was last year. Personally, I had a hell of a lot more fun watching Monaco than I did watching Imola this year, even more than Suzuka, and I am both a Max Verstappen fan who thoroughly enjoyed watching Max win both of those races, and a big fan of both circuits when viewed purely as drivers' tracks. But I still enjoyed Monaco more because I like watching teams and drivers play with the rules and test what is and isn't allowed. I enjoyed watching the normally rule-abiding George Russell get frustrated, cut the Nouvelle chicane, and just admit fully that he was willing to take the penalty. And yes, I know this is a flaming hot take that's probably going to get me cancelled, but hey, maybe there's some races that just aren't for every fan. Just like there are some football matches that some fans can't be bothered watching because they're a foregone conclusion, maybe some F1 fans, as I said earlier, need to finish their Monaco GP watching on a Saturday and just skip to the highlights. I don't know, I just think that part of being an F1 fan is understanding the sport is more than just about how many overtakes happen in a race. That it's a team sport, not an individual one, and this Sunday was all about the team game, as is pretty much the case every time we come to Monaco. And sure, you might call me a hypocrite again because of Imola, but I'm a YouTuber. I make videos about this stuff. I thought Imola was a bit boring and I wasn't a fan that almost every overtake was DRS assisted, but I still had a damn good time watching it because I love F1 and I love watching cars go around circuits, even if sometimes not a whole lot happens. The thing is, Monaco isn't going to go away. It's only got a few years before the centenary of its first running, so it's not getting cancelled anytime before 2029. It's a huge boost to the economy of the entire region, not just Monaco itself, as the surrounding French communes are where the vast majority of visitors attending end up staying and spending their money. And it has that level of glamorous iconography that's so synonymous with F1 as a whole that short of a severe breakdown in relations between Prince Albert and Formula One management, it means it's probably here to stay for a very long time. And is that a bad thing? To have a race that's such an outlier in a 24 and possibly soon to be 25 race season? Just one race. One. Even if F1 lean into the outlier factor, they create something entirely unique for the Monaco weekend that acknowledges how different it is from the rest of the calendar. And they do something so dramatically unrecognisable to what we're used to, which to be clear, I'm not averse to, you're never going to please everyone. There's always going to be a loud group of fans who just hate Monaco. And I don't know, man, maybe they just shouldn't watch it.